All right, welcome back. Guide for Veterans number 3. This is our third webinar in the series, Gathering Evidence for a Strong VA Claim. This is designed to help veterans understand what evidence is needed for a successful VA disability claim, how to gather it effectively, and how to avoid common mistakes. So, gathering evidence for a strong VA claim. Welcome. Excuse me. Welcome back. Today we're going to cover one of the most important steps in your VA disability claim process: gathering the proper evidence. So a quick recap of the last webinar, even though it says webinar number 1, my apologies. We covered eligibility and service connection disability. What every veteran will learn today: what evidence the VA requires, how to obtain those records, service records, medical records, and buddy statements, and how to build a strong case to avoid delays or denial. That doesn't mean you're not going to be denied. It just means it's going to reduce the likelihood of. So stay until the end, and we'll get a free checklist for you to everyone who stayed till the end to identify all the required evidence that they need. Again, my name is Nick Casarios, retired in 2009. I am 100% permanently totally disabled, waiting for the VA. And I did write the book, How to Write Your Own Successful VA Claim for Service-Connected Disability Compensation, a VA claim guide for veterans. It has been a bestseller on Amazon for the last 3 or 4 years, something like that. Anyway, enough of tooting my own horn. Let's get into it. Understanding the evidence the VA requires. Why is evidence critical, right? Why do you have to provide strong evidence? It seems like a simple answer, but so many veterans that I've come across that I've helped with their claims, this is the one mistake that affects their claim the most. The VA does not automatically grant benefits, so it's up to you. It's your responsibility to prove your claim. And with that, it's your responsibility to provide the proper evidence, strong evidence, to support your claim. Your claim could be delayed, denied, or rated lower than deserved without solid evidence. So what are the 3 key types of evidence? You have medical evidence. Now, this can be from your VA doctors, private doctors, or specialists. Specialists basically meaning orthopedics, pulmonologists, etc., etc. Oncologists if you have cancer. Service records, your DD-214, deployment orders, in-service treatment records. Now, these are important, obviously, because they prove your service. They have specific dates and times where you served, which also lets the VA know what areas of the world you were in, what combat environment, which then determine what, if any, presumptive conditions you deserve to be rated for. And then lay evidence or buddy statements. Buddy statements can also be statements from your spouse, co-workers, employers, etc., from family, friends, or fellow service members. All 3 of these are your responsibility to acquire. Why do I say that? Because the VA has access to your service records. You can grant them access. The VA has access to your medical evidence, to the VA records that they have of you, and you can give them access and approval authority to get all your other medical records. But as I mentioned in the previous webinar, why would you leave it up to somebody else who has no vested interest in your claim to gather all the evidence to prove your claim? Why would you do that? You wouldn't do that in a court of law. You wouldn't let the prosecutor gather all the evidence to prove your innocence. Don't do that here. Take responsibility, gather all the evidence yourself. Here, this slide identifies probably one of the most, if not the most critical part of your claim: the importance of a nexus letter. A nexus letter is a medical opinion providing the link between your disability and your military service. Without a nexus letter, the VA may deny your claim due to a lack. Yes, just because you were in an area, most of the time, a lot of our disabilities, some of the disabilities that veterans file for didn't occur in a combat zone. So how do you provide proof of the connection? How do you prove it? A nexus letter is how you do that. Okay? And we'll get into how to write a nexus letter in another webinar. But who can write a nexus letter? Your primary care doctor or a specialist can write it, or an independent medical professional familiar with VA claims can write it. Now, I've seen on Facebook and other forums where veterans pay hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars for a nexus letter from some professional, from some medical professional that they've never even met. The medical professional will review all their documents and write their opinion based on the documents, and then charge a hefty sum. And then there's no guarantee that you're going to get it approved. You're going to get your claim approved with that nexus letter, and you're out all that money. You can write your own nexus letter. Your primary care doctor can write a nexus letter. If they don't know how to write a nexus letter, I have a nexus letter template that I will gladly give to any veteran that needs it for free. I don't have any reason to charge you for it. It is a simple letter, but it does require specific verbiage, and we'll get into that in a separate video, in a separate webinar. But a nexus letter, if your disability was not caused in a combat zone or in an identified by both the PACT Act and other designations, you're going to need a nexus letter. So how do we gather medical evidence? VA medical records versus private medical records. VA medical records automatically stored if you receive care through the VA. Kind of a no-brainer. Request copies through My Health Vet or a VA hospital. Now you might be asking yourself, Nick, Gunny, why do I need to request my medical records from the VA if I'm submitting my claim to the VA? And here's the answer. And it's pretty, well, you decide what you think about the answer, but this is the truth of it. The VA is comprised of two different departments. You have the VHA, the Veterans Health Administration, and then you got the VBA, the Veterans Benefit Administration. Now, they do not talk to each other because doing so, I guess, is a conflict of interest. But your VHA, your medical provider, your primary care doctor through the VA, does not communicate or share any medical records with the Benefits Administration, the VBA, the part of the VA that files and approves and works on your VA disability claims. They do not talk. They do not share information. So you have to request it, or you have to tell the VBA that they can go get it. Again, don't do that. Get it yourself. That way you can review the documents, make sure they're the right documents, and you can build your case off of actual evidence that you've seen. Not rely on somebody that doesn't care about your claim, as I mentioned before, to get the evidence, to get the private medical records. If you're treated by a non-VA doctor, you need to request and submit them yourself. Make sure your records include diagnosis, treatments, and doctor statements linking your condition to service. That's simple. If the doctor simply puts in his opinion that your condition is as, quote, as likely as not, end quote, caused by your service during such time, that will qualify as a nexus letter. It's that simple. But I understand that it's confusing, and again, I have a nexus letter template that I can provide to veterans. But that's the importance of VA medical records and private medical records. But the one thing that you have to realize, and please, this has to be drilled in your heads, get your own medical records. Combine or compile all your records on your own. Build your claim physically in physical documents so that you can see everything, so you can identify, so you can go through the checklist. The checklist that I will provide you free of charge. There's no charge for it. This is all meant to help veterans. Okay? So how to obtain medical records? Again, request VA medical records via My Healthy Vet, or you go to your doctor and ask him for request private records by contacting your doctor's office or hospital. Your private doctor should not charge you for records, for copies, but they might give you a time. They might say, well, it's going to take us, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. So plan accordingly. Okay. Now you can use VA Form 21-4142 to authorize the VA to obtain your private medical records. That's an option. You can do what you wish. I gathered my own records. I submitted what I needed to submit, so that way I knew what I was submitting, and I knew what the VA was going to look at, and I know that the VA got those records because I submitted them. There was no question. But do as you wish. Gathering your service records. So what service records are needed? Your DD-214, which provide proof of military service and discharge status. Any in-service treatment records, medical visits during active duty. So those will be your military medical records. Deployment orders and performance evaluations, helpful for PTSD and exposure claims. Incident reports or injury reports, and injury reports for combat training or workplace injuries. Now, if you do not have these records and you don't know where to get them, we're going to go ahead and go over that in the next slide. So let's get to it. But these are the bare minimum records that you need to prove your eligibility, your service to this country, and to show that you were the disability, the condition in service to the country. So how to obtain service records? Request your DD-214 and service records from, number one, the National Archives, www.archives.gov. When you go to this site at the top, you'll see different tabs. There's going to be one that stands out, says Veterans. Click that one, and then follow the instructions on screen. E-benefits, you can request them through there. That's through the VA. And you can also go to your military branches personnel center. Headquarters of the Marine Corps, I think, is in Washington, D.C. and Henderson Hall. Of course, every branch has their own. Request in-service medical records from the VA regional office or military treatment facility. And then, of course, you've got the VA Form SF-180, request for military records. You can do that again. I would suggest you gather all your records on your own. Take your time and get them. Submitting lay evidence, or better known as buddy statements. All right, spousal statements, employee statements, employer statements. So what is lay evidence? Personal statements from veterans, family, or fellow service members. Used to support claims when medical records are incomplete or missing. I gave you an example of a veteran that I helped with that. Buddy statements are especially helpful for PTSD, tinnitus, and injuries that weren't formally reported. These are very important because it is basically an eyewitness statement of your condition or the symptoms of your condition that is valuable to the VA rater and reviewer of your claim to make a determination. How to write an effective buddy statement? Who should write it? Fellow service members, family, or close friends. Again, that are witnesses or they were witnesses. They were witnesses to the incident that caused the disability, to cause the condition, or they are witnesses to the symptoms caused by the condition. Okay? And what should it include? Simple, the writer's name, relationship to the veteran, and their first-hand knowledge, witness of the condition. A clear and detailed statement about how they witnessed the disability affecting the veteran. So again, this could be the actual causation or the conditions of how it's affecting the veteran, the symptoms of how it's affecting the veteran. And a sworn declaration stating simply, I certify that the information is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. You can use the VA Form 21-10-10 for buddy statements, or you can do as I did and simply have it written out or typed out on a piece of paper and signed by the veteran or the person who's signing it, who's submitting the statement. It's not difficult. It's simple, can be confusing, but these are the basic outlines for a good, effective buddy statement or lay statement. So next steps and the call to action. So let's recap the key points. Strong evidence is the foundation of a successful VA claim. Gather your medical records, your service records, and buddy statements to strengthen your case. Again, you gather the records. You compile all the records yourself in physical form. Get your claim put together, identify, understand everything that you need and everything that you're submitting. A well-organized claim is going to help you avoid delays and denials. It's not it's going to help avoid delays and denials, because the VA will have all the documentation they need. Okay? Again, patience is virtue. Take your time. Be methodical. All of you were taught attention to detail. Follow it. These are important forms and processes that you're following because they will affect you. All right. Again, our next webinar is going to be on Nexus letters. To date, everybody's going to get a free PDF guidance on evidence to collect. Again, visit our website if you have any additional needs or have any questions. Thanks for attending the webinar. God bless and take care.